Have you ever wondered how Dexter, the boy genius with sky-high potential, never made it big despite having such an advanced state-of-the-art laboratory? Well, there is a dark theory quite popular among fans which explains what Dexter was actually about, and it's not even close to what you might think. The unsettling secret we're talking about here is the truth about Dexter's laboratory. As the fan theory goes, the laboratory is Dexter's escape from the real world, a world where he was institutionalized for mental illness. In short, the laboratory never really existed in reality. Now, there are various references in the show that may have led the fans to believe this theory, so let's tap into the details. Despite the fact that Dexter is known as one of the world's most brilliant geniuses with a laboratory equipped with cutting-edge technology, there is something a little strange about him. He's often reclusive, spending long hours alone in his lab, working on projects that no one else really understands. Dexter avoids socializing and is almost always busy inventing something, often seemingly detached from reality. The show frequently features surreal and absurd plotlines, such as Dexter inventing a machine that turns him into a giant monster or creating a clone of himself that turns evil. But does it not tick you off at all? Since his age group loves playing and interacting with the outside world, this definitely leaves you wondering, is Dexter a normal kid at all? If you watch the show, you might remember that Dexter's lab is ginormous. Remember the size of his house? Now, it's a given that cartoons often work on the theory of exaggeration, but how can an entire lab be hidden behind a bookshelf in an ordinary house? And not to put too fine of a point on it, but how are his parents oblivious to the fact that they have a heavily equipped laboratory running on the premises of their house? Do they not notice the weird unexplained noises when Dexter is inventing something? This raises too many questions and totally points in the direction of the theory that the lab never even existed in the first place. No matter how unaware his parents might be portrayed in the show, it was way over the top for Dexter to get away unnoticed with such a big lab right under their noses. In another episode, we see Dexter has a hidden entrance to his laboratory through Dee Dee's room. This could suggest that his laboratory is not a real physical space, but instead a manifestation of his desires for privacy and control in a chaotic experiment. As the theory goes, before being institutionalized, maybe Dexter was mocked mercilessly by his peers. Remember how he couldn't solve the simple 1 + 1 = 2? His parents, in an effort to make him feel better, told him that he's a genius. This could be the stepping stone where his laboratory was formed in his mind, like a kind of safe place to turn to when the world becomes too much for him to bear. When he believes his parents that he's a genius, Dexter builds a fantasy world in his imagination, a secret laboratory hidden in plain sight that he uses to create extraordinary inventions. It's the little things that might have led fans to believe that Dexter has some sort of mental illness. There are various behavioral traits highlighted throughout the series that shed light on this theory. For example, in the episode D Code of Honor, Dexter creates an elaborate code to communicate with Dee Dee, but doesn't it boggle anyone's mind how a code is required by Dexter to communicate with his sister, the one person he's grown up with? Many fans think this suggests Dexter's difficulty with interpersonal communication. In the episode Muffin King, Dexter creates a machine to control his dreams, further suggesting that he wishes to escape reality and live in his own world on his own terms. In the episode Dexter's Rival, Dexter's animosity with Mandark escalates to the point of physical violence, which could be a sign of unresolved anger and aggression. Dexter has a warped sense of reality in the episode where he thinks Darby, the doll, is his wife and she's cheating on him with Ben. He even goes on to speed up the aging process as shown in Don't Be a Baby, showing Dexter's dissatisfaction with his current age and desire for control over his own developments. These references can be interpreted as signs of mental trouble and could support the fan theory that Dexter's laboratory is a product of his imagination, considered a coping mechanism in a mental institution. Isolated from the world because he's different, Dexter often finds himself lonely. Being lonely can certainly play a few tricks on the mind. With all the free time Dexter has on his hands, he fosters scenarios where he is hailed as a hero, as seen in the episode Dexter's Odyssey, where he sets off on a quest to retrieve a stolen object, or in Dial M for Monkey, Peltra, where he creates a superhero persona to fight crime. The entire episode of Dexter's Lab, A Story, takes place within a storybook, suggesting his desire to live in a fictional world. Fans speculate that this highlights Dexter's delusional thinking and desire for control over his environments. If not that, Dexter indulges in quagmires, like creating a mirror dimension in the episode Straw Cap, which spells backwards if reversed by the way, suggesting a desire to escape from reality, or when he goes on to meet his younger and future selves by traveling through time, suggesting a desire for self-exploration and escapism. In Dexter and Computress Get Mandark, Dexter creates a robot companion named Computress. This could point to his desire for companionship. In Dexter's Little Dilemma, Dexter creates a machine to duplicate himself. In another episode, he wishes to explore the galaxy and the other side of the moon. Sometimes Dexter tries to stop time, showing his inability to accept change. In short, the little boy keeps himself busy in these scenarios as the days go by, highlighting his loneliness. If memory allows, you might remember Kusi, also known as Kusa Lagupagoop. He is Dee Dee's imaginary friend, a rainbow dragon-like creature hailing from the imaginary world of Koosland. Now, how does Dexter get to be acquainted with Kusi? He perceives Kusi as real and even fits him into his imaginary world. Based on the theory, Dexter's encroachment onto Dee Dee's imaginary friend shows his potential for loneliness and social isolation. More often than not, Dexter often fails at what he sets out to do because of his his reckless choices and uncontrollable excitement. Throughout the show, Dexter does not consider the impact his inventions will have on fellow beings. For example, in the episode Rude Removal, Dexter creates a machine that splits Dee Dee and himself into their good and bad counterparts. Some fans believe that this right here is a potential for inner turmoil and difficulty in managing conflicting emotions and behaviors. Supporting this theory, take a look at the invention of the talking parrot in The Parrot Trap. Dexter's loneliness and lack of understanding of consequences led him to create the parrot, to have an intelligent companion to talk to, but soon it turns uncontrollable, meddling with the lives of other family members. This episode also highlights Dexter's destructive behavior, but did you also know that this is the same episode where Dexter accidentally reveals his secret lab to his parents? Their reaction? Nothing, because the lab doesn't actually exist. The episode Old Flame shows Dexter creating a love potion, which basically reveals his manipulative behavior. Similarly, Dexter creates a machine to extract laughter from people in the episode The Laughing, which just shows his possible difficulty in understanding social interactions and his desire to control them. Just like that, in Mon's story, Dexter creates a monster that becomes uncontrollable, suggesting that he does not understand the consequences of his actions. As the theory goes, Dexter often tries to alter the life course of others, as shown in the episode The Justice Friends, Krunk's Date. Dexter takes it upon himself to find a date for Krunk. This sheds light on his controlling behavior and difficulty in respecting others' autonomy. Similarly, in another episode, Dexter attempts to tidy Dee Dee's messy room, which eventually leads to a complete mental breakdown, depicting a lack of control over his environments. Speaking of messy situations, Dexter's favorite superhero, Major Glory, is a germaphobe, which shows how Dexter projects his obsessive compulsion towards cleanliness in hero figures. As you may know, obsession is Dexter's strong suit. Remember how he became so focused on studying when he went to college that it eventually ended with him having a burnout, and in turn he decided to have the biggest party ever. Or in the episode The Justice Friends, Beware, where Dexter becomes obsessed with finding a lost bee. It suggests his lack of ability to prioritize tasks. In another episode, Dexter's laboratory, Chicken Scratch, he puts all his focus on turning people into chickens, implying potentially obsessive behavior and disregard for others. Dexter is so consumed by the idea of winning in the episode Dexter's Wacky Races that he even attempts to cheat. This highlights his lack of morals and difficulty in understanding the concept of failure. In the episode Techno Turtle, Dexter becomes obsessed with a video game and eventually merges with the game's protagonist, suggesting his difficulty in distinguishing between reality and fantasy. Now let's talk about Mandark, Dexter's arch-nemesis and rival scientist throughout the show. He is Dexter's object of hatred and competition, a common trope in the world of imaginary playmates. Some fans speculate that once Dexter realized he won't ever be seen as a smart person the way Mandark is, he lets jealousy take over and harbors negative thoughts towards him. This could be the reason he cooks up scenarios in his brain where he defeats the evil Mandark. For instance, there is an episode where Dexter supposedly takes advantage of Mandark's infatuation with Dee Dee, resulting in the destruction of Mandark's lab, courtesy of Dee Dee's ballet moves. Maybe Mandark is not entirely bad, just like Dee Dee and Olga, Mandark's sister, who get along after setting aside their differences regarding the dance recital. Maybe Mandark could have been a great friend of Dexter's had Dexter been mentally sound. All in all, Dexter's rivalry with Mandark can be seen as a representation of his inner conflicts. Though Dee Dee is shown as an annoying, intrusive big sister throughout the show, fans speculate that actually the opposite is true. She actively tries to keep an eye on Dexter as he tinkers with everyday things that could pose a threat to himself and others around him. This is backed by a lot of references throughout the show. Remember when Dee Dee says she couldn't be the superhero's sidekick because she already has a full-time job in protecting her little brother? Or when she tells her friend that Dexter has special needs? Dee Dee loves Dexter and spends most of her time checking up on him, which Dexter misinterprets as meddling when Dee Dee breaks into his lab. All of this suggests a complex and potentially troubled psyche for Dexter, supporting the fan theory that he is a child with mental illness, living in a mental institution, and his lab is a figment of his imagination. But what do you think? Make sure to let me know in the comments below.